We are back with audio. Mr. Brubaker?
I don't know how to make the rewind sound, so we'll just skip that. So I'll just start at the beginning of the slide here. This slide's titled 2022, a year of stifled recovery, a year that I think will extend well into 2023 for our industry. As we came out of the pandemic, the aviation industry experienced what we're calling a post-pandemic honeymoon phase, where there was an extreme amount of pent-up demand for travel. And while many people would say, well, duh, what do you think would happen? Our industry didn't think that was going to happen. There was not a single person in our industry that I'm aware of, academia or real-world work, that thought the aviation industry demand would return until 2024 or 2025. So we had this huge surge that came back towards the end of 2021 of pent-up demand that's continued well into 2022. We are starting to see that diminish a little bit, especially with inflation and cost of airfares nationwide. But what's interesting is airlines and airports weren't able to meet the increased demand. You know, for-profit businesses, they have more demand. You make the investment and you make sure you can meet that demand and make the money. Unfortunately, the shortage was in labor. It wasn't buying airplanes. It wasn't buying gate space. It wasn't buying landing slots at airports. It was a lack of pilots. And you can't quickly get pilots. And I'll talk a little bit about that. This chart here shows that, and it's small. I know, I apologize. I can email this out to you all. But on the far right side is November 2022, and these are percentages of traffic compared to 2019 numbers. You'll see on the far right is November 2022 at 94%. We're still 6% nationwide down compared to 2019, and it's not because of a lack of demand. It's a lack of capacity. There's not enough seats for all the demand nationwide. It is still a miraculous recovery considering April 2020, we were at 5% of 2019 numbers for demand and passenger throughput. And we experienced that here locally, where we lost 97% of our business overnight at the airport. So I won't go too deep into the pilot shortage because I talked at length about it with you in April when I was here last. We talked a lot about it then, but we're at a point where we're at a crisis level shortage of pilots. Comparing 2022 to 2019, more than 300 airports have lost up to a quarter of their air service. More than 160 airports have lost more than a quarter of their service. So we have 300 that have lost at least a quarter, and 160 have lost more than a quarter of their air service. Unfortunately, we're one of those 160. Major U.S. passenger and cargo airlines, through the end of October, hired 11,372 new pilots. That's the Americans, Delta, Southwest, JetBlues, UPS, and FedEx, the big carriers. They hired 11,372 pilots through the end of October, and that'll likely exceed 13,500 by the end of this month for the year. The problem is each year we only produce 5,000 to 7,000 new pilots a year in this country. So where is that difference coming from? It's all the big airlines hiring from the small airlines, the regional carriers, and hiring from corporate aviation, small cargo operators, and so forth. So what that does is rural America is adversely impacted because the small airplanes are flown by the regional carriers where those pilots are being taken from, and they're not able to hire new pilots quick enough to overcome that loss, which results in headlines like you'll see on this slide. Once again, they're very small, or I'm just blind, one of the two. But some of the headlines I'll call attention to, there's one that really stood out to me. Toledo, largest U.S. city to lose air service due to pilot shortage. That was June of 2022. I don't know the exact population of Toledo, but I know it's in excess of 200,000 people. So half the population of the state of Wyoming, let's say, maybe not quite that much, but close. They have no air service at all. It's gone. They didn't just lose one airline. They lost it all. And there's examples of that around the country, and you'll see that on maps that I'll show here shortly. But there's headlines here where Southwest cutting 20,000 flights out of their schedule because of a lack of pilots. United cutting 100 flights this week or this day because of a lack of pilots. The headlines are staggering, and this is just a very small sample of dozens and dozens of headlines across the country of air service being just yanked out of communities. The other graphic there gives you a little bit of a short synopsis of how we arrived at a pilot shortage. Once again, we talked about that in April, but in large part, there's regulatory issues that cause the inflow to be cut back, and then the outflow. There's regulatory issues on the mandatory retirement age. So it results in this issue where you have all these retirements, and we don't have as many people being hired. And then when you add the growth of the aviation industry, which on an average year grows about 3.6%. That's standard going back decades. It's about 3.6% growth every year in air travel. So overall, the situation's just become dire. And what that looks like is this is a map of every single station exit across the country through September. And after September, there was 11 announced by United, and they're listed on the right side there. But if you look at this list, I know they're just the identifiers for airports, so unless you all are aviation nerds like me, you probably don't know what any of those dots mean. But there's a couple on there that I will call your attention to, specifically Dubuque, Iowa. Their population is the size of Casper. That city, that town is the size of Casper. Very familiar with it. It's where I went to college. They have no air service today. We have a population of 23,000 and change. We still have air service. And I can go through almost every single one of these communities that's listed on here. Outside of just a few, we have far less population than any one of these cities listed here. This is just station exits. This does not necessarily mean that there's no air service in those communities, but one of the three majors has just left that community completely. A really good example would be Grand Junction. Delta Airlines had operated there for 33 years, producing 32,000 enplanements a year. They completely just walked away from it. They left 32,000 customers basically stranded overnight in Grand Junction and walked away from 33 years of history. So there is no sacred city when it comes to air service cuts. This next map shows, and I apologize, and once again, it might be because I'm blind. I hope you guys can see it better than me. But the black dots signify cities that have lost air service completely. This is actually a little bit outdated. There's only 5 or 6 shown on this map, and there's now 14 nationwide that have lost 100% of their air service. The red dots are the cities that have lost more than 25% of their service, us being one of them. And the yellow or orange dots are ones that have lost 0 to 25% of their service. So across the country, once again, there is no sacred city or sacred town. So enough of the negativity, enough of all that. I wanted to take an opportunity, as I said at the beginning, to kind of summarize some things that have been accomplished since I've arrived, and primarily working with those of you on this council and the county commissioners. And I think it's a really important thing to look back and realize what your support has meant to the airport, whether that be financial support, letters of support, just taking the phone calls. I'm sure Tim will block my number on at midnight on December 31st, so he never has to take my calls again. But I can tell you the countless calls, hey, Tim, I have an issue, or Tim, I have an idea. And he's like, hey, let's get that in front of the council, or hey, let me work with staff on that. And the same goes with the phone calls I've made to all of you at times to ask for your support before coming before the body. This list here is not all inclusive, but these are some of the highlights. And they date back to 2016, 2017 timeframe. So for those of you that have been on council for the duration of my time here in Sweetwater County, this is largely due to your support, and a huge thank you to your support. And the total amount on that list is $67.8 million of capital investment at the airport, 96.1% of which was covered by federal or state grants. So without your support, without saying, hey, we will step up and fund a conceptual design or a terminal area plan so you can go after the grant funding, it wouldn't have been possible. So just want to really, once again, thank this body, thank all of you that have contributed to this success, and look forward, for those of you that won't be returning to these seats here in a couple weeks, I look forward to working with you in other endeavors. Keaton as a county commissioner, David over at the communications center, been a great partner to us, and many others that I'm sure our paths will cross in the years to come. With that said, I want to take a quick opportunity to look at what's ahead for those of you that will be here and those in the audience that will be filling these seats. We're looking forward to a hasty completion on the commercial terminal modernization project. We are working on innovative air service development opportunities. I will be leaving, I don't know, in about 8 hours on an airplane to go to Chicago, or 9 hours, how many ever hours it is until our god-awful 5:30 a.m. departure. We'll be heading to Chicago to meet with United Airlines tomorrow to work on the next phase of how do we grow our air service, how do we keep what we have, how do we get better. So we're excited for that and what those conversations will yield. We also, here next week, will be holding our first meeting towards our 20-year master plan. Every 10 years, airports in this country have to do a 20-year master plan. It's required by the federal government. Some of the things we're going to be focused on is commercial aviation growth, general aviation growth, advanced air mobility, which is things like UAS, unmanned aerial systems, vertiports, electric aircraft, which are legitimate and they are coming, and we are forced to recognize their existence now as airports. And then the last one is one that may be have some conflict with some maybe local opinions, but it's a requirement from the federal government. We have to be carbon neutral by 2050 to be eligible for grants. So the master plan will take a very strong look at what we can do to be carbon neutral by 2050, and that'll involve things like carbon capture. You heard a presentation tonight about direct air capture. Right now, my pipe dream, which I think could be a reality, is being the first airport in the world to offer direct air capture, carbon capture on our property, and sequestration on our property, and be able to monetize it. So not only can we offer those carbon capture or carbon credits to our customers, and they know where it's being used instead of the money being shipped somewhere else in the world, it's happening right on our property. We get to monetize that, and we get to be more attractive to today's customers. So it's one of the things we'll be looking at. When I say we, the city owns the pore space underneath the airport. It's something I'll have to work with your legal counsel on when the time comes about how our lease of the city or of the airport works with that pore space. But there's opportunities since the airport sits right on top of the Rock Springs uplift. Other things we'll be looking at is utility scale solar development, hydrogen development, primarily on the hydrogen propulsion when it comes to aircraft systems. Those are all things that we'll be looking at how do we become a leader in those spaces, especially with the effort for the hydrogen hub and the DAC hub and the carbon capture hub that are all being worked on by the School of Energy Resources and the Wyoming Energy Authority with the Department of Energy. I've been in several meetings with the School of Energy Resources of late, working on better understanding the Rock Springs uplift, better understanding the hydrogen potential for the airport, and just really trying to understand how do we become a leader in this space, not just domestically but internationally as well. And then the last item is, and it's not necessarily the last, but the one I wanted to highlight, is we have our next 10-year capital plan, which will get modifications based on the master plan study. But as it sits right now, it's a $70.7 million capital plan. Currently, we have grants us lined up to cover 77% of that cost. A bulk of that cost is the reconstruction of our primary runway, runway 927. That alone is about a $45 million project, and that is scheduled to occur late this decade, early next decade. We are hopeful we don't have to do a reconstruction, but we are planning for it, both financially and operationally, in case we do have to. The master plan will help us better understand that. We're also going to be doing other airfield projects, further hangar development to support general aviation expansion. General aviation accounts for over 90% of our revenue at the airport, and it's the easiest way to grow revenue for the airport, and growing revenue helps us get closer and closer to that operationally self-sustaining goal that we've had. So why do we do it? Why do we continuously get up every morning and get after it and try to come up with these innovative ideas and push through the challenges that we face? And it's because of our economic impact to the community. These numbers are pre-pandemic, and we expect to get back to these numbers eventually. But 27,000 annual visitors, 324 direct and indirect jobs, totaling almost $11.4 million of local payroll, $21.1 million of annual spending by the airport and its tenants and the employees at the airport. $1.4 million in annual tax revenue, and nearly $37 million of annual economic impact. And these numbers show the value of our airport, show the value of the investment that this council, the county commission, the community continues to make in the airport. And we go to work every day trying to make sure that that investment is as small locally as possible, and we'll continue to do that. With that said, I just want to thank you all once again for your support. Mayor, councilors, it's been an honor to work with you. I look forward to working with the rest of you that will still be here in January. Look forward to continuing the partnership and delivering on the goals we've outlined to you and the expectations you all have of us. So I'm happy to answer any questions, but just really want to thank everybody once again. So,
Councilors, questions?
Your Honor,
Councilman Robinson?
not a question, but I just wanted to say thanks for all that you do for our community. I mean, not just the airport, but just in general. You're on top of your game, and some of the stuff that you've outlined, especially some of the thinking ahead, is pretty fantastic. We're lucky to have you as part of our community. Thanks.
thank you.
I got a quick question. It's like, I'm sure I heard you right, but that runway, 45 million.
Yes.
How long is that runway?
It's 10,000 feet long, 150 foot wide.
How-
It's about 14 inches thick of
14 inches
asphalt
thick, yeah.
with another 36 inches of engineered subbase underneath it.
That's insane.
2 miles of concrete.
Wow.
It can support 515,000 pound aircraft, which is, for those of you familiar with aircrafts, the Boeing 787 that flies mostly international. It can support 500 operations a year of that aircraft without causing damage to the runway. So,
Before you tear that up, could we talk about drag racing?
Next question.
sore subject.
Is there, Your Honor,
Any other?
is there 2 flights? What is it today? No.
So we are still at one flight a day,
One
and I
flight.
kind of
So
glossed over that
5:30, and then it comes in at 7 or
about
whatever.
10 o'clock at night.
Yeah.
Which
That's what
is
I thought.
really killing us. We're filling that. Last month we were 86% of the seats were full. In our industry, anything over about 82% is considered full, because it means your peak travel days are sold out and your non-peak travel days are still running at about 70%. We can most certainly support a second flight immediately. We were supporting it. We were within 7% of 2019 numbers in December of 2021. January was looking strong, and then February 1st, the pilot shortage really took hold, and they took that second flight from us. We desperately need to get back a flight, and that's why I'm flying to Chicago tomorrow to meet with United. We continue to work with our partners at SkyWest who fly the planes under the United brand, but we are spreading our reach a little bit more to just explore all options and opportunities to build relationships, maintain relationships, and hopefully find a path that gets us back to 2 flights, if not 3, because prior to the pandemic, we were already scheduled to have a 3rd daily flight. And then the pandemic hit and wiped it out. And then obviously we transitioned from pandemic to pilot shortage. Getting 3 flights is a pipe dream, but you guys know me, I'm going to fight for it. We'll get after it. And hopefully one day we'll see success. So.
Well, Devin, you're a man of many hats. I don't know how you do it, but I can tell you since I've been here and been able to work with you and your staff, you do a fantastic job. It's a breath of fresh air to see all the changes we've made at an airport at one time that just was a stagnant airport. There was really nothing going on there. So your vision and your willingness to go out there and secure grant funding has been phenomenal. And I think that's why this governing body's supported you in your efforts to grow the airport, because we know that you've done your due diligence in looking for federal and state grants, and it's paid off. And hopefully things will just continue to improve. But I thank you. It's been an honor to work with you.
Same here, and I appreciate it. Having a board of directors like we have, that you have appointed, the county commissions have appointed, having the staff that I have, the teammates we have at the airport, and it's not just our staff. TSA, the airline, the rental car staff, they are all dedicated to the vision, and they don't get paid by the airport, but they're dedicated to it, and they come up and show up every day to perform. and get after it. And I think I've said it before, but I believe I plant the seed. Our staff waters it every day. I occasionally have to come in and throw some fertilizer for some course correction, but it's the staff that really does the work and makes sure that the vision's carried out. So huge kudos to them.
Well done. I appreciate that. Anybody else? Questions for Devin? Thanks, Devin.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Okay, we're going to move on to the public hearing section of our agenda, councilors. We have one public hearing from the Housing Authority to discuss the administrative plan for the Section 8 voucher program for the Rock Springs Housing Authority, of which we'll take action under Resolution 2022-165. Is there anyone here tonight wishing to speak on this public hearing? Anyone? Hearing none, we're going to move on to the petition section of our agenda. Is there anyone here tonight wishing to address the city council on any issue whatsoever? This is your time to do so. Anyone? Hearing none, I'm going to close the public hearing section, and we're going to move on to the petition section and move on to the council committee and staff reports. Councilors, we have 5 items. 1, the Parks and Rec Advisory Board meeting minutes of September 8th and October 13th, 2022. 2 is the Rock Springs Historical Museum Board meeting minutes of October 12th, 2022. 3, the Joint Powers Telecom Board meeting minutes of October 20th, 2022. 4, the Joint Powers Combined Communication Board meeting minutes of October 24th, 2022. And 5, the Main Street Board meeting minutes of November 14th, 2022. And I would ask, are there any other reports that wish to come forward at this time? Hearing none, councilors, I'd entertain a motion to approve the council committee and board reports and place on file.
So moved.
We do have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second's been called. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? It's going to move us on to correspondence, of which we have none at this time. It's going to move us on to bills and claims. Item number 1 under bills and claims, the bills and claims for December 6, 2022. Councilors, what's your pleasure?
Your Honor,
Councilwoman Demas?
I make a motion to approve the bills and claims for December 6, 2022.
Councilors, we do have a motion to approve the bills and claims for December 6, 2022. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second's called by Councilor Halter. All in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed?
Abstain.
Let the record show. And item number 2 is the salaries for November 22nd, 2022. Councilors, what's your pleasure?
Your Honor,
Councilwoman Demas?
I make a motion to approve the salaries for November 2022.
Councilors, we do have a motion to approve the salaries for November 22nd, 2022. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second has been called by Mr. President. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Going to move on to new business, of which we have none. On to resolutions, councilors. We have 6 items under resolutions. The first being from the Housing Authority. Number 1, Resolution 2022-164.
A resolution of the governing body of the City of Rock Springs acting in its capacity as the Rock Springs Housing Authority Board to request a conflict waiver from the Department of Housing and Urban Development.
Councilors, what's your pleasure?
Your Honor,
Councilman Hickerson.
I move to approve Resolution 2022-164.
Councilors, we do have a motion to approve Resolution 2022-164. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second's called. Roll call.
Councilor Robinson,
Yes.
Halter,
Yes.
Vitolo,
Yes.
Savage,
Yes.
West,
Yes.
Hickerson,
Yes.
Zadi,
Yes.
Demus,
Yes.
Mayor Como.
Yes. Item number 2 from the Housing Authority, Resolution 2022-165.
A resolution authorizing Timothy A. Como, acting in his capacity as chairman of the Rock Springs Housing Authority Board, to repeal the revised administrative plan for the Housing Choice Voucher Program and replace it in its entirety with the new administrative plan dated December 6, 2022.
Councilors, what's your pleasure?
Your Honor,
Councilman Savage?
I move to approve Resolution 2022-165.
We do have a motion to approve Resolution 2022-165. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second's been called. Roll call.
Counselor Halter,
Yes.
Batolo,
Yes.
Savage,
Yes.
West,
Yes.
Hickerson,
Yes.
Zadi,
Yes.
Demus,
Yes.
Robinson,
Yes.
Mayor Como.
Yes. Item number 3, Resolution 2022-166.
A resolution accepting and approving a grant award agreement between the U.S. Department of Homeland Security and the City of Rock Springs, and authorizing Timothy A. Como as mayor of the City of Rock Springs, Wyoming, and Matthew L. McBurnett as city clerk of the City of Rock Springs to execute said grant award agreement on behalf of said city.
Councilors, what's your pleasure?
Your Honor,
Councilman Batolo?
move to approve Resolution 2022-166.
We do have a motion to approve Resolution 2022-166. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second's been called. Roll call.
Counselor Batolo,
Yes.
Savage,
Yes.
West,
Yes.
Hickerson,
Yes.
Zadi,
Yes.
Demus,
Yes.
Robinson,
Yes.
Halter,
Yes.
Mayor Como.
Yes. Item number 4 is Resolution 2022-167.
A resolution accepting and approving a memorandum of understanding regarding acquisition, maintenance, and cooperative use of a converse eye detect station between the Sweetwater County Sheriff, the City of Green River, and the City of Rock Springs, and authorizing Timothy A. Como as mayor of the City of Rock Springs, Wyoming, and Matthew L. McBurnett as city clerk of the City of Rock Springs to execute said memorandum of understanding on behalf of said city.
This is cool stuff. Councilors, what's your pleasure?
Your Honor,
Mr. President,
move to approve Resolution 2022-167.
we do have a motion to approve Resolution 2022-167. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second's been called. Roll call.
Counselor Savage,
No.
West,
Yes.
Hickerson,
Yes.
Zadi,
Yes.
Demus,
Yes.
Robinson,
Yes.
Halter,
Yes.
Batolo,
Yes.
Mayor Como.
Absolutely, yes. Item number 5, Resolution 2022-168.
A resolution of the City of Rock Springs, Wyoming to support a national landmark designation within the corporate limits of the City of Rock Springs for the placement of a monument to commemorate the Chinese massacre.
Well, we're getting there, fellas. What's your pleasure?
Your Honor,
Councilman Batolo?
I'd like to thank Matt for his efforts and the committee that's moved this forward, as well as yourself, Mayor. I move to approve 2022-168.
We do have a motion to approve Resolution 2022-168. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second's been called. Roll call.
Counselor West,
Yes.
Hickerson,
Yes.
Zadi,
Yes.
Demus,
Yes.
Robinson,
Yes.
Halter,
Yes.
Batolo,
Yes.
Savage,
Yes.
Mayor Como.
Yes, and I'd also like to thank the School District Number 1 in St. Cyril Methodius Parish. Everybody's pulled together to make this happen, and it's on its way. So hopefully before too long we can see construction. Item number 6, Resolution 2022-169.
A resolution accepting and approving a completion guarantee with bond from DiBernardi Construction, Inc. as guarantor for Edmondson Construction, Inc. for the remaining subdivision improvements for Mustang Ridge Phase 1, a new subdivision within the corporate limits of the City of Rock Springs, Sweetwater County, Wyoming, and authorizing Timothy A. Como as mayor of the City of Rock Springs to execute said completion guarantee with bond on behalf of said city.
Councilors, what's your pleasure?
Your Honor,
Mr. President,
move to approve Resolution 2022-169.
we do have a motion to approve Resolution 2022-169. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second's been called. Roll call.
Counselor Hickerson,
Yes.
Zadi,
Abstain.
Demus,
Yes.
Robinson,
Yes.
Halter,
Yes.
Batolo,
Yes.
Savage,
Yes.
West,
Yes.
Mayor Como.
Yes. Councilors, this is going to move us on to the ordinance section of our agenda, of which we have 3 items. The first being ordinance 2022-13 on third reading.
An ordinance amending Article 3.2 of the ordinances of the City of Rock Springs entitled offenses concerning public morals and decencies.
I would turn some time over to Counselor Zadi, the chairman of our committee, to introduce some new language.
So I've got just a few language changes I would like to make to this ordinance, and I'll read them. Those changes are as follows. We'll replace and delete the word except with including on 3-200.1. The second change would be at 3-200.1, I guess paragraph C, delete the phrase, if that sexual intrusion can reasonably be construed as being for the purpose of sexual arousal, gratification, or abuse. Third change would be 3-200.1 D, delete the phrases with the intention of sexual gratification and exchange for consideration. The fourth change would be 3-203, delete the words or frequenting from the title. And the fifth change, 3-206.1, in paragraphs A and B, replace references to sections 3-201 to 3-206 with the phrase, any violation of this article. And those are the changes I'd like to propose be made.
Council, those are the proposed changes as in the form of a motion. Do we have a second to make those changes?
Second.
Second has been called. Roll call on the changes.
Counselor Zadi,
Yes.
Demus,
Yes.
Robinson,
Yes.
Halter,
Yes.
Batolo,
Yes.
Savage,
Yes.
West,
Yes.
Hickerson,
Yes.
Mayor Como.
Yes. With that, ordinance 2022-13, third reading as amended. Do we need to read through those again, or are we good?
Just a motion.
We're good. Okay.
All right, I'd make a motion to approve 2022-13.
We do have a motion to approve ordinance 2022-13. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second's been called. Roll call.
Counselor Demus,
Yes.
Robinson,
Yes.
Halter,
Yeah,
Yes.
That's what I just
Batolo,
Yes.
Savage,
Yes.
West,
Yes.
Hickerson,
Yes.
Zadi,
Yes.
Mayor Como.
Yes. Okay, moving on to item number 2, ordinance 2022-14, third reading.
An ordinance creating Article 1012 of the ordinances of the City of Rock Springs entitled Licensing and Regulation of Massage Therapists and Massage Establishments.
Your Honor,
Okay, yeah.
I would like to remind council that this is the ordinance that the committee has recommended do not pass, as we are still working on language for this, and we need a little bit more time to do it properly and make sure it's done right. So again, the committee recommends do not pass, but we will hopefully have an ordinance to bring to council at a future date to
Perfect.
reconsider.
Thank you,
With
Counselor.
that, I make a motion to approve.
We do have a motion to approve ordinance 2022-14 on third reading. Do we have a second? Just as good? Died for lack of a second.
There you go.
Okay.
We just made Tim's night.
Oh,
We made Tim's
oh
night.
man, that's history for Timmy.
Yeah. Right.
You
Okay,
get to
moving
celebrate
on.
tonight.
Moving on to item 3, ordinance 2022-15, first reading.
An ordinance amending Article 3.5 of the ordinances of the City of Rock Springs entitled Humane Control and Regulation of Animals.
Okay, councilors, with no further business to come before this governing body, this meeting is adjourned.